Views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of alltalkradio.net.
Here I am, standing at the door, looking back at life as it's been before, holding on to things that might have been, knowing that this day will never come again, as my spirit's guiding me.
Hi, this is Lainey Risto, and you're watching Soul Chat here in Las Vegas, Nevada. And my co-host today is
Kara Keating.
Yeah, director of Soul Sanctuary here in Las Vegas, and also you're an author.
Yes, I am.
What's the name of your books?
My first book is called I Am Enough by God, and it's available.
I Am Enough by God.
By
I am
God.
enough. Yeah, okay. And you're working on another one, you said.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I am. That one's called Soul Tango.
Are we together enough here? Here we go. There we go. We're so close.
I know, we're good friends, so I don't mind.
Yeah, we're going to talk today. Kara's been on before, and we've had a couple of shows we've done on empaths, and you actually have a group called Empaths Unite.
Correct,
right? And
yes.
I get to talk on it. I get to go and be a guest.
I know, I'm
this
so
coming
excited.
Saturday. Yeah, that's what, 10 to 12?
This from 10 to 12, this coming Saturday, the 21st of
Anybody
March.
here in Las Vegas, it's on Russell and Pecos, and what's the name? It's a neat little office building.
Commerce Business Center. Is
Commerce Business Center, and you can always call in here, or we'll give our phone numbers at the end, and you can call us if you want to know more information about that. But first, what did I learn about myself this week? I had learned that it takes a lot longer than I think to get over past relationships.
Interesting.
And one of the things that is sometimes, and I had quite a conversation with someone about this weekend. One of the things you can let go of somebody, you can let go of the relationship as you know it, and as you know, it takes quite a bit to work through, especially, and I don't think it has anything to do with the longevity of the relationship, although if you've been married, like I had been married for 27 years, so that you've got more history.
Yes.
But I think it can be just as devastating whether it's 2 years or it's 27 years, or there's an unwinding that needs to happen. And one of the things that needs to be let go of that people seem to forget, and I've even helped people do this, and I didn't realize that there was an old piece left from my previous relationship, which is actually, the divorce was 13 years ago.
Oh, so it's been a while.
So it's been a while. And this was it's literally about releasing the dream of what you hoped it would be.
Yeah.
Which is different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you and I talked about that yesterday.
Yes, we did.
Yeah. So I was in a workshop this weekend up in Seattle on, everybody hold on, put your seatbelts on. It was advanced curse removal. Ooh. In fact, I'm going to do a show here in a couple of weeks about curses, because people ask me all the time. And it's interesting because they will maybe not talk about it out loud, but when they find out what I do, they'll kind of come over and go, I think I might have something on me. So it's out there. And as long as there has been humankind, and as long as people could write, they've written about curses. So,
Yes.
yeah. So one of the other parts of that is removing thought forms. We can get caught in thought forms that can act like that. Have you ever had yourself or known somebody that just keeps getting stuck in a story?
Yes. I've
And
been stuck in a story.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that. Recognition is part of the battle.
Do you want to hear it?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We'll see when it comes to your turn about what did you learn. Maybe you can tell me. Anyway, my ex-husband, I have felt very stuck financially. What with and a lot of people did. Financial meltdown, trying to recreate what they lost or create it again, or even just move forward in a healthier way. And I kept beating myself up about, wow, I'm just not stepping up. I'm doing this. I'm procrastinating. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And what I discovered is, in this thought removal process, that I had a thought form that almost becomes an entity unto itself. That there was a part of me that when I made the vow, when we got married, there was a part of me that agreed to be a certain way. And because I said at some point after 27 years, no, I have to step out of that because it's not healthy for me to be in this relationship, and no matter what I've done, it's not changing with me. I basically broke that vow and had put myself in a spot where I felt like I deserved not to be financially abundant. I deserved, because I had broken this vow. So it's about removing that energetically. And shamanically, what we do is we journey to spirit. We ask spirit to help us identify it. We ask spirit to give us the essences that are involved, because you need a fuel in a thought form or a curse-like situation. You need a fuel in order to make that happen. And many times it can just be human emotion. And he was so angry when we split that was part of what was fueling it. But I was also fueling it because I was saying, oh, I deserve this. I deserve this. And so I was stuck in that thought form.
Yeah.
So, and here I am 13 years down the road, and he's passed away.
Yes.
Yeah. And so here I was still dealing with old stuff from that relationship. So when you think it's all gone, make sure you've got a little writer in there that says, and in case it comes back up again, I can deal with this, you know. So it was very much a learning. It was very touching as well when I realized that, because a component in that was I literally felt his spirit come forward and apologize. So, and you know how that works. There's this healing that happens, and the tears came up, and so that's what I learned.
And then the release happens.
And then the release happens. And consequently, I've been scrambled for 2 days. You were lucky yesterday. I was in as good a shape as I was. So
You did wonderful for me.
So what did you learn?
Well, it's actually, to play off of some of what you just said, some of what I've been learning is actually to stand up into who I am. I have been, I've actually been really blessed with some great energy work lately. The John of God Crystal Healing Bed came to Las Vegas, so I was able to do that. And then I worked with Lainey here to work on some blockages that I felt like I've had and I've been pushing against for my whole life.
And understand, this is not the first place to go. You got to make sure that you were kind of at a place where you tried everything. Right?
I had tried everything.
Right.
I had gone and looped around and tried everything. But this is actually a process that started actually back in 2011.
And it is a process, because as you and I were talking yesterday, I still believe the biggest change comes in the smallest steps.
Yes. And, back in 2011, I was, really, isolated, alone, had all these spiritual intimations, had no expression of all of that stuff. So really, literally on a day-to-day basis, I was just picking one thing to bring me a little bit of joy. And that little incremental steps, have slowly evolved me to, moving from where I was living to, taking on, going towards my dreams. I'm in seminary. I've opened now Soul Sanctuary.
Right.
But these are all incremental steps. I didn't just, do one at a time. But the message for me continues to be over and over and over again, to make sure that I shift myself back into alignment into who I am, and that it's safe and okay for me to be my spiritual self and express all of these pieces of me in the world. And I don't know where I kind of got that it wasn't safe for me. And so since 2011, I've been working on that and layering that off of me.
It is like peeling an onion.
It is like peeling an
is.
onion.
Yeah, yeah. So we both kind of had the same thing, but it takes. The other thing I want to say is that it takes a lot of courage to stand up to be your individual self.
Yes, because you have to make peace with your flaws.
Yeah.
You have to make and be okay in them, and not try to be somebody that you're not. Try to be the ideal.
And I always tell people, if you can look at your flaws as learning tools, it's a little easier to deal with, because we all have something we got to learn. And somebody will come up to me and say, well, you do this work and you're very good at it and you must have it all figured out. You know what? It just gets deeper.
Yeah.
It gets a little closer to the bone. And I have my bad days just like everybody else.
Yeah, so do I. And
Yeah.
and it just keeps layering different layers and different peelings. And the other piece that goes along with that, though, is when you get the courage then to always go through the learning
Right.
rather than push the learning. It actually goes faster, easier, smoother. kinder to your spirit and your being.
And we talked about that yesterday as well, as truly about the old phrase of you have to go through it in order to really understand what's going on. And I had that intellectually for many years, but it's really been the last 4 or 5 years as I've been doing the shamanic work, because it is very much a shamanic healer very much walks their own path first. That's part of what has to happen in order to be able to practice in that way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's called the path of the wounded healer.
Mm.
So here I am, walking the path, and my stuff comes up just like everybody else's.
Yep, me too.
And it's and absolutely going through it. I mean, I never understood it. I kept trying to hop over it, and I wasn't hopping so well until finally I really got tabled. I really health-wise got tabled, and I had nothing else to do but look at it and but feel it and make some decisions and be willing to feel it the whole way through, even though I didn't like it.
Yeah, that same thing happened to me in 2000. I was sick with a thyroid problem in 2011, and so it was the same thing. I was sick for a lot of years, and so the only way for me to go was internal. And when I went internal and went into all of it and started peeling all these layers that I was so afraid of, that I had been pushing away or didn't want to look at, there was a whole lot of wisdom in there, and then there was a whole lot of self-compassion in that experience.
Yeah. And when my experience is when I finally started having compassion for myself, not meaning feeling sorry for myself, but when I finally gave myself the room to say, this hurts like crazy, and this doesn't feel very good. And it's okay, because this has been a hard thing to do.
Yes.
And not expect myself to be any place else but where I was. That's compassion.
That is compassion.
And then at that level, I can start having it in that way for other people as well.
Exactly.
So that's where the healing comes in. And I think that's what makes the good healers good healers.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So with that, we did good.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk more about funny feelings, because I know Kara gets this question all the time with the group that you facilitate. Right. But I had several people call me and say, I have this question about, I've always been sensitive, but I never saw myself as an empath. I mean, I hated it I couldn't stand it when people were being mean to other people, but I never saw myself as an empath. I just thought I was just kind of overly sensitive. So I decided this is a good thing to talk about. So we called the show today, Funny Feelings, Are They Yours or Mine? Mm-hmm. And is it empathy or is it intuition? How do you tell the difference?
Yes.
Because there is a big difference.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to talk about. And if you have some questions or if you have some stories or discoveries you want to call in about it, call into 702-609. 702-609-7626. I almost can't read that. My eyes are fuzzy. Or if you're on Skype, you can go to Skype and type in All Talk Radio, one word. And with that, so funny feelings. When was the first time you noticed funny feelings? When they weren't yours or they were yours?
Okay, so actually the time that I really knew that I was empathic, that I really knew that I was feeling somebody else's feelings, was back in 2004. Mm-hmm. And I was attending a church in North Idaho, and it was a really volatile time at the church. The minister was leaving, and there was like this big meeting. Everybody had to say their piece and say goodbye to this minister that had been there for a long, long time. Mm-hmm. And I had gone into this, church meeting, and I was fine when I walked in. The moment I walked into the building, I couldn't help myself, but I was sobbing. And by the time I sat in that room and had my turn to the minister, I was crying so hard I almost couldn't get my words out.
And you had been fine before.
I had been fine before.
You had nothing going on in your life that was an issue. Okay.
That was an issue. And then I had another class or some other engagement that afternoon, and I, left the meeting a little bit early before the whole, congregation had left, and I wasn't about 25 feet from the building, and all the tears stopped, and my energy shifted, and I went, oh, because I had just learned about being an empath, and I went, I bet that's it.
Isn't that interesting? So you had learned, you'd taken a class, or
somebody had mentioned it to me. It was as one of the psychic gifts, between clairvoyance and clairvoyance, which is the vision, people that can see energy fields. clairsentience, which is the feeling or the empath, and then clairaudience is when you hear guidance. And so I had just learned about those things. Somebody had mentioned it. It was just kind of along the process for me. And so after that experience, I went, I wonder. And kind of what solidified the experience for me is I had gone to Seattle shortly after that to see a Carolyn Mace, she calls herself Mace, talk. And I had gotten up, gone to the restroom, and there was a girl that was attending the seminar, and she was in the restroom, and she was sobbing. And I asked her, what's wrong? And she goes, I don't know. She goes, I was sitting in that room, and I just don't know. And so that's when I started. That's like the first person I ever taught any of the little bits and pieces that I had started to pick up on being an empath and what that means for people. So to answer your question, how do you know if it's just sympathy or empath? An empath feels the feeling.
Yes. And they think it's their own.
And
it
they
can
think it's their
easily
own.
be their own. And if you're not aware, this is where they get in trouble.
Yeah.
This is where we get in trouble because I'm empathic as well. I was just sitting here thinking, when did I first notice that? And, I honestly can't tell you, but I had an image come up when I was 7 years old. My sister had cerebral palsy. And many times children that have one handicap, they have other things that are going on as well. So she also had a form of epilepsy. And in those days, the Dilantin wasn't present. I mean, they didn't hand it out as readily as they do now. They may not have even known about it, but there was no help for it. And so she would have a convulsion, and it might last 15 minutes, it might last an hour, and then she'd sleep for 3 or 4 hours. And I slept in the same room with her.
Oh, wow.
And I believe that I was so attuned to what's happening with her because she couldn't talk, that at a very early age, and I just realized this just now, that experience of being in the same room, because I would wake up in the middle of the night when things would shift, when the energy would shift, and I would know immediately, oh, there's something wrong with her. So I think I had a little bit of training in that way. Have I had situations where I've walked in and went, oh boy, have I got to get out of here? Or this is too much, I can't handle it. Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I was really involved politically when I lived in Washington. It's been 20 years ago now, but I noticed that in a room with all of the heated discussions that would be going on, I couldn't stay there very long.
Yeah, I can't.
I can't. It was like hearing sandpaper going off all the time. It was and I'm very clairaudient. So that would be something.
Yeah.
And I don't have a particular problem in cemeteries, because I do work with a lot of spirit shamanic healers. We're about healing the spirit, whether it's in this reality or on the other side of reality. And I don't have issues like that. I've always kind of been able to separate that out. But that's the key, is knowing what's truly mine and what's coming from someplace else.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And intuition, I think that's a big piece of intuition. I think at one point we talked about that you can have intuition without empathy, but you can't truly have empathy without intuition.
That's true.
Agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Because intuition to me is guidance, and I think everybody has a level of guidance. And I think that goes across the board. But I think an empath takes it a level differently, because the guidance is really an emotional energy. You get the impact of the other person's emotional energy, and you really understand it beyond just like intuiting it.
And you take it in it manifests physically somehow.
Oftentimes, yes.
Yeah, because I know some people that they will literally physically get sick.
Yeah, I know people that are actually, and I know people that are hiding. They're empaths and they're hiding because they're afraid to go out. They're afraid they're going to get sick.
And that's part of why you developed the group.
That is
right?
part of why I've developed the group, and because I want to create empowered empaths, and I think that there is a gift in this, and I think that we have almost a mission. I think we're if we were 1,000 years ago, I think people who were struggling would come to an empath for an empath to help them move the energy and transmute the energy. And I think as a healer, that's actually what we're supposed to be doing. But
That's the next step. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think we've learned the tools that keep us safe, that keep our energy fields clear, so that we can be of service with the gift.
Now, I know some people will take they won't take offense, but they would love to argue with me about there, because they say there are people out there that are energy vampires that are walking around looking ready to attack you so that you're a victim. And the way I work with people, when they have been in a situation where their energy is depleted and they do truly have somebody else's energy that's stalking them or trying to entangle with them.
Okay.
One of the things that I do is I bring their work first to bring their energy to wholeness. So if your energy is diminished, and we've talked about this before, if you've had a physical illness where all of your energy has gone internal just to heal, you don't have time to deal with anybody else outside, let alone because you're so busy healing. People have chronic illness, or people that are going through chemotherapy, or people, anything like that, or you've had made it through the flu season almost, and you're just just knocked on your can. You need to bring your energy up, and sometimes it's a slow process and you're not ready for it. And then I think those are the days that you have to listen. Is this the day that I'm actually out there, or is it not? Yesterday was not a good day for me because I was in a whole room full of people. We were doing this unraveling, thought forms and curse work, and you're moving back and forth in and out of time, and it's draining. Because you have to the difference is can you put your roots down long enough to be able to operate in this world? Because it's hard to operate. It's messy here.
Yes, it is. Energetically, it's messy here. Yeah. There's no clear-cut way of doing any of this.
No, there really isn't. So my way of dealing with it is I would rather, instead of putting up a barrier, because it takes a tremendous amount of energy to put up a barrier.
I agree
and if you're low on energy anyway, now you got to take what you got left to try and hold it up there. Yes. And the minute you take it down, you're depleted.
Yes.
So my way of doing it is teaching people, which is what I would like to do this Saturday, is give people a couple of things to do where they can expand their energy at any point in time, especially if they know they're going into a situation that hasn't worked out for them before.
Yes.
Sometimes you don't. Mm-hmm. People that travel on airplanes, I know that many times people traveling on airplanes, there's a lot of worry and a lot of concern. And I used to hate it if I would sit next to somebody who was worried all the time, worried about the littlest bump. You can always tell because you're sitting there and they're going,
mm-hmm. Yeah. They grab for the seat.
And then I'm jumping right along with them, So those are, because we do have to live out there in the world. But I do believe, and I'd like you to talk about this, is the awareness. How do you become aware of what's yours and what's somebody else's?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or
I'll
mine.
talk to that.
What's mine and what's yours?
Well, I want to backtrack just a second.
Sure.
And talk just a brief moment on what I think needs to happen. Like when people talk about energy vampires, it's really, like she said, people that are depleted, and they're looking for, they see your light, and they're trying to get to the light. And so one of the pieces that I do when I'm around somebody that, would be categorized as that energy vampire is I actually ask the divine, I ask the God, I ask spirit to send them the light. And I see that for them when they can't see it for themselves.
Right.
So I wanted to put that out there because then they will stop coming for your own light if they're getting the light from the source where it's really supposed to be coming from.
Right.
But the other piece with being an empath is the really difficult piece. Probably the hardest piece of all of it is figuring out what is your energy.
Right.
Is getting to the spot, because especially if you've been empathic your entire life, you don't know what your own emotional field is and what is somebody else's. And it takes that inner work. I mean, I wish there was an easy way to do it. I can give you some tools to do it, but it's consistent tool usage till you get to the point where you go, oh, this is just me. And, some of that is, consciously clearing your field. I'll take light and I'll take it from the top of my head, and I'll have this, white light or yellow light or whatever light you really want, but usually it's a white or yellow light that I'll take through every part of my body, and I'll have it push out any energy, any feeling, any emotion that's bedded in me and send it all the way down to Mother Earth to be transmuted. So it'll come out my feet. And so I will fill my entire being with light, pushing those pieces out. But the big challenge with being an empath is knowing your own energy field. Because then when you know your own energy field, then is when you get really clear that you're being affected by other people. But then there's also, another piece in that is if you haven't done some of your own inner healing, it's really similar to feeling like you're being affected by other people's energy. And I can give you an example
When
of that.
when is it somebody has said something that I'm triggered by and I have a reaction to?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. I have someone in my life that I've been struggling with some anger with. And I see them frequently on a regular basis. And I spent probably 2 months telling everybody that they had this terrible energy, and I was just being impacted as an empath, and it was, really difficult. And I had a very good story about it. I have to say that I kept telling myself over and over again.
Yeah, it's the story.
And then I realized one day, like the light bulb came on, that the common denominator in all of it was me. Mm-hmm. And that it was actually my own internal anger. So every time I saw this person, they would trigger my own internal anger that I hadn't done the work
yet.
For.
Right.
So I know it's somebody else's energy. If it happens, and then as soon as I'm away from them, I'm really clear. But I know that it's my energy if it's really consistent over and over again.
And it's the same, it's got the same type of thing. I mean, you run into one person and they say something and you go, well, that's just ugly. I just got to get away from that. And then you go into somebody else and there it is again.
Exactly.
Two totally different people. That's one way to tell.
That's one way to tell.
I have another way that, and I've talked about it on the show before. If somebody says something, for instance, last week I was talking about how this man followed me to make sure, he wanted to make sure I understood what a crappy driver I was and how he was, I needed to get driving lessons, and I had done a quick move over and whatever. I'd signaled everything, but there were other circumstances as well. It was right there by trying to get into your place is where I was, right? But this man had taken an extra 4 or 5 minutes with his children to drive around and make sure he found me and then scream at me.
Oh, wow.
It was really interesting because I was in the wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I had caused a little problem there. Mm-hmm. But then I found out his kids were in the car with him and whatever. And then I didn't have any reaction while he's looking at me and I'm going, it's called being responsible for your own reactions.
Yes.
And so 20 years ago, I would have taken him apart. I'd have been out there nose to nose with him. Being a great New Yorker, even though I'm not from New York, and doing that. And instead, I just sat and looked at him, and I thought, okay, he's right. That was a short cutoff, And I just looked at him. I said, thank you, And then in the next sentence, he told me, he says, and my kids were in the car, and blah blah blah. And then I had a reaction. And for me, when it's an issue of control, when it's mine. My solar plexus, I might as well have swallowed a bowling ball.
Yeah.
It feels cold and hard. And I went, oh, there's something there. What's under that? And sometimes what I'll do is if I have a physical reaction deep inside, it's not that I don't have a physical reaction when it's somebody else's stuff, but this is a different thing. This is something that it's physically deep inside of me.
Yes.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And I will ask it, if it could tell me what this is all about, what is this all about?
Yes, perfect.
And so immediately I had a situation come up, and I had compassion for him because I felt what my kids must have gone through when I was doing what he did. Maybe not to the same degree, maybe it didn't sound the same, but it was still the same anger, and understanding that, I knew, anger's always kind of on the top of everything.
Yeah.
So I was really fearful. So that's different. That's not empathy. It's looking at my own stuff and coming around and understanding
Yes.
Where does that live in me?
Yes. But that comes from that self-compassion.
Right.
Because in doing that self-worth.
That's the inner
because
work.
The inner work. As otherwise, all you do is immediately go into a reaction and response to the energy that's in front of you, rather than having an internal conversation, that moment of saying, what is this? And Spirit, guide me.
Yeah.
And then you shift into something different if you can have that little bit of separation.
Right. Just that little bit of separation, because I wasn't reacting to him. And I had a witness who said, wow, you were really diffusing that well, until he got to the part about the kids. And then all of a sudden, oh, there it is right there. And it came up. But that's different. So there's I'm not having any reaction to him. I'm just listening to him.
Yeah.
It's his stuff.
It's his stuff.
Yeah.
But
it takes work to get to that place. Boy.
Oh, yes, it does. Yes, it does. And I agree with you, because I will get what feels like a hit in my solar plexus when it's my stuff. More often than not, because when it's other people's stuff, I kind of come from a philosophy that everybody's exactly where they need to be.
I do too.
And they're working forward in their own spiritual growth and development, whatever pieces that need to work forward. And so whatever it is they come to show me about them, like that gentleman with his anger, it's just that's his growing edge, and I can be in a space where that's okay with most people.
There are some people I'm still working on.
Yeah, I said with most people. I didn't say everybody.
Yeah.
But even when somebody does tweak me, I go, oh, that's my own ego.
Yeah.
And I work on that, and when I'm not around them, so that the next time around, maybe they won't tweak me so much.
And I also think that intuition has a different feel from empathy, because intuition, I don't have any physical reactions with intuition.
No, neither do I.
Yeah. I think that the problem comes between trying to decide, well, is this your stuff or is it my stuff? And if I'm having a physical reaction, not throwing up in a garbage can, maybe that's it. But I have to go through that process and ask that question.
For me, though, the intuitive guidance tends to come through my clairaudience. For me, it tends to come either in picture or in sound, in the voice in my head.
See, my clairs are clairaudience and clairsentient, and sentient is about feeling. So that's where it can get murky for a lot of people, because they have a feeling. But I have, empathy-wise, I have this feeling for empaths, is that it feels out here. It's not that deep internal knowing when you know it's your stuff, when you know it's something I've got to work on.
Yes.
This is my fear. It's not, as opposed to their fear.
Well, and I think there's also a piece. I mean, I'm going to backtrack a little bit, because there's a piece you have to know with your own energy in order to even be able to make those discernments.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to kind of start working with some tools that help you be clear. Meditation's one of them.
Listening to that inner voice.
Listening to your inner voice.
So you know what it sounds like, or what it looks like for people that are visual. Or what it feels like. People say, oh, you just need to open up and you'll be visual. Well, everybody has a visual component. It just depends on where it lines up on the priority thing. And mine tends to be clairsentient, and then clairaudient, and visuals at the bottom. And so it's knowing what is yours, knowing when that's coming. But when I have an intuition about something and I have a funny feeling about that, it's different than if I'm sitting next to somebody who's got an issue.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And so you're right. I think it is about getting to know yourself like a roadmap, and that starts with awareness. If I just say I'm not going anyplace, I could hide in my house for years. I did.
I did too. I did for 7 years.
Because it was the easiest thing to do, and it wasn't until I started going inward that I started getting some answers and relief.
Exactly. Well, and then the intuitive piece for me also tends to be informational.
Yeah.
Like it tends to just be something's not safe, something's not quite right, that doesn't feel quite truthful. So even as some of those pieces, the feeling pieces of that, it tends to be informational rather than emotional.
And I don't take it personally.
Me either.
And I think that's a good thing to know, is to start out. Is this an intuition, or am I feeling something else from someone else, or am I actually having my own stuff come up. So there's actually 3 components to it, I think,
Yeah, I think so too.
if you can separate it out that way.
Yes, but you know, I'm going to say the thing. It all goes back to self-work and the work of it, because you know, and especially like when I figured out I was a empath, I was raising a family and I had little kids and I was around my little kids all the time, and you know, and my husband and all of that kind of stuff, and it was difficult to understand or to know what was mine, what was theirs, what was just being a mom, what was being a part of a
Because sometimes
family.
you don't have time to stop and do all of that. You just got to react.
You just got to react,
Yeah.
and you just got to live a life.
I remember I just had, I don't know if my son will listen to that, but when he was about 8 or 9 years old, and we were in a hurry to go someplace, we went to climb in the car, and I was telling him, come on in, and I got something caught, and I ended up shutting the door in the car on my hand, and I yelled at him, and he turned to me in his 10-year-old wisdom or whatever and said, oh, like I slammed the door and made you hurt your hand, And I think that's pretty descriptive right there. He had the presence of mind to know he didn't have anything to do with that, He didn't do anything. And that feeling of I didn't do anything is what we're hoped to find when we're sorting out our feelings. When we're
Yes.
sorting out, is this mine, is this yours? What's going on here? But it does start with you. To do a process where you would start deciding if that's their stuff, I think you still have to start with your own.
Well, and I like what you said too, that you have to ask the energy and the information what it has for you, where it's coming from, if it's from somebody else, because if you go internal and you ask those questions and you talk to the energy that you're feeling, it will have answers for you.
It will.
You will get clarity.
You will.
If you write it out or you bring it to someplace where you can see it, where it comes out of you to look at. That helps me a lot also.
Yeah. And there are some days where it's just better if I don't go out there because my energy for whatever reason. And again, it's back to that self-examination. Is this a good day? I've had a couple of times over the last several years that I've been doing shamanic work where I will call clients up in the morning if I've set it up and said, today is not a good day. I'm not at my best. I'm not going to be 100% for who you are. I'm not going to be, tells me I'm not going to be able to get my ego out of the way so I can clearly look at what's going on for you for whatever reason. Yeah. And again, it's that self-work. I've been working on this since, let's see, oh my gosh, over 25 years, starting the old self-help books and all of that. And it's all about going inward.
Yes.
Which is, based on the show we did a few weeks back, it's about the age of Aquarius. We have a caller.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey,
who's this?
This is Hedda. I'm hoping I didn't miss the show. I just finished cooking dinner.
Oh. You didn't miss the show, Hedda. This is Hedda's a friend and a client, and she's come to many of my circles before. You didn't miss the show.
Fantastic.
We've got about
okay,
5 minutes left.
Reading to this subject.
Yes. Hello? What did you
Just
do?
here, my phone gives me trouble. My computer gives me trouble. Everything gives me trouble.
You're fine. Do you have a question, Hedda? If we can get your question out, we can talk about it. I don't know if we'll interact with you online, on the phone call. But do you have a question?
My question was, you're today empath, right?
Right.
And how do you probably already covered this? How do you know when it's your feeling versus someone else's feelings that you're absorbing? And most of all, how do you protect yourself? I mean, not that you want to be, incognito or isolated from people, but you also want to not absorb all of everybody else's negative crap.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot the last few minutes about how do you recognize other people's, and we've both come to the agreement that it is about doing your own self-work so that you know your own stuff. You know your own voice that you hear in your head when it's yours and it's not somebody else's. You know that. But you called at the perfect time because we were just probably going to start about how do you protect yourself.
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
Yeah, so we're going to say goodbye because we only have a few minutes left. But thanks for the great question, Hedda, because we'll talk about this before we sign out.
All right, sounds great.
All right.
You guys have a good day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, self-protection. I know. That's well, and for me it's not so much, I don't worry so much about protecting myself because the clearer that I am of who I am, that actually protects me to some degree.
Right.
Because I know when I'm not in my own energy.
But you and I have been at this for a while, too.
We've been at this
Right.
for a while. So one of the first things, and I said this on the last show, but I want to repeat it here again, is that as an empath, you have a choice whether or not you feel somebody's energy, and you can set, it's not really a boundary that you have to hold, but you can set the intention and tell the universe that you will feel the information. You want the information and the intuitive information from the emotions that are coming at you, but you do not have to actually feel the feelings and be absorbed by the feelings. And so, for me, usually I plant my feet, and I will say that to a room if I walk into a room that's charged, or I will, if I know I'm going to have a difficult conversation with somebody or be with somebody who tends to be difficult for me, I will set that intention beforehand and say, universe, I am happy that I have this gift, but I only want the information from it. I don't want to be absorbed in it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. One of the things that I do is I literally, before I go someplace, I will take a moment off to the side and I will bring a beam of light down. You've done that with me. Bring a beam of light down through the crown of my forehead, or down through the crown of my head, past my forehead, down through my throat, down into my chest, and let it fill my heart. I make sure I let it do that and let it fill my body and take it down through the solar plexus and the abdomen and the tailbone, and then send it straight down into Mother Earth and ask her to anchor me. Yeah. So it's like holding onto a pole when you're on a bus. I want a little stabilization here. If I find I can't do that, I may not go in if I think it's going to be real strong. I may not. And it's about self-care.
Yes.
Is what it is. The other thing that I will do when I'm working with people, and this is for people who are familiar with shamanic healing, we all have a power animal spirit. I will merge with that power animal spirit before I go in the room and have that extra layer of protection.
That's very nice.
To do that. But it's all kind of the same thing. It's about increasing your light with some support by bringing in so that you can expand your own light.
Yes.
That's what's really important, and that's a way to protect it. And I think it does start with self-care. If you really dread going someplace and you're sick to your stomach because you just don't want to go, don't go.
Just don't do it.
Just don't do it.
And same thing with people that you dread to be around. It's not necessarily that you're empathic. It's maybe your guidance is telling you, this might not be the best person for me to hang out with all the time.
Now, if you want to practice any of these things, what I would suggest doing is going someplace where you don't have to interact with people if you don't want to. Like, go sit in a mall.
Yes.
And watch people. Watch someone you feel, somebody go by. And reach out and see if you can feel their energy. Or check in at, how am I feeling in this moment? What do I feel? And start developing that muscle of awareness. This is what's going on. This is not what's going on. You can make notes. I mean, you could do things like that. But a public place where there's plenty of space, and some people can't even sit in a mall.
Yes.
I have problems with parties, as George knows. He watched me do exit stage left. He didn't even see me leave, Yeah. I just get to a place where it's like, and I'm starting to vibrate. And I just, I don't even want to know whose energy is whose. I just know my energy, and I know what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the best protection. And there's other things you can do. Some people pack a crystal in their pocket. Some people will have a stone, and they can ask Spirit to infuse the stone with some energy so that they can reach in and grab the stone and feel like they've given themselves a little handle on things.
Exactly.
Or you can have somebody out there running around with a picture of something in their purse. That's
well, and one of the things actually that some of my empaths are actually finding really useful is to have an image that vibrates really high for them, but not necessarily emotionally charged. So like a butterfly or an eagle, and then you focus on whatever that image is. And it, instead of your energy coming to match the room, you actually bring your energy. You can keep your energy where it's at.
Right. Yeah, and again, both Kara and I are on the same page. I'm not as much about protection as I am about expanding the light, expanding who I am to walk through the world. And I'm telling people in my groups all the time, it's like you're as much of the sun as you can be, because the only thing that can stand next to you is another sun. Or if they're not, their light isn't that bright, they either figure out how to ramp it up or they back off.
Exactly.
So it puts choice. You're responsible for your own feelings and your own emotions and the way you want to navigate your own energy.
Yeah.
I think that's much stronger.
And I want to go back really quickly to the emotional vampire piece, because when you're an empath, people tend to come up to you and dump every last
it's like you have
detail.
flags out. You know?
Tell me your life story. And I just want to, again, reiterate that if they're attracted to your light, that they're seeking light. And so just ask for the divine, ask for spirit, say a prayer for them, say a blessing for them, that they're hurting in some way or capacity. And if you can just bring that light in for them, even though they don't know how to get it themselves, that really helps you a lot, because all of a sudden the energy for them shifts.
Right.
And they get to a different place in a conversation with you.
And if you empower yourself. Now, I have a couple of clients that some days I'm really good. I can talk to them on the phone, but they like to go in all the details. And it's in their pattern to do that. So I will say to them, I really want to hear what you have to say, but I only have this much time, and I really want to get to the core of what you're talking about, because the details, I'll just wander off in the details with them.
Yes.
And it's empowering for you, and I've actually had people come back and say, I'm really glad you said that. I forgot that I do that. So, but you don't have to do it in anger. You're taking care of yourself.
Yes.
With what's going on. So, we got just a couple minutes left. So where can they call you if they want to know more about Kara Keating?
Okay. Soul Sanctuaries in Las Vegas, and we're on the corner of Pecos and Russell in the Commerce Business Center. You can look us up at www.soulsanctuarylv.org, or you can call me at 702-748-7166. And then you can look up my writing and that type of thing. I write a weekly soul blog at karakeating.com, and Kara's with a K.
Yep. And this coming Saturday from 10 to 12.
10 to noon.
10 to noon. I'm going to be with Kara and meeting with Empaths Unite. So if any of you are curious and you want to come down, because I'm going to be teaching people something called transfiguration, which is another way to expand your light.
Beautiful.
And clear the light out. And we'll talk about everything that we've talked about today. The 25th, next week, I'm going to be at Spirit Us Reiki Center. We're going to be doing Reclaiming Your Power. We're going to do a shamanic healing circle and do that. People can get a hold of me at 702-308-8464, and I have a website at shamanicsong.com, SHAMANIC song, SONG.com. We also, Soul Chat, we have our own YouTube channel. And if you go and subscribe to it and after you've subscribed and you send me an email and in the subject line you put Here I Am, I will send you a free copy of the Here I Am song that we play when we're coming on and leaving. So other than that, if you walk into a room this week and you feel like you don't belong there and it keeps getting worse and worse and you were fine before you walked in, nothing was bothering you, you might consider getting up and getting out. Or you can call Kara or myself and we'll give you a little advice or take you through a practice that'll teach you.
Exactly.
Everybody can be empathic. Everybody has intuition. Other than that, have a great week. Thanks for coming on, Kara.
It's
always fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Thank
Next
you.
week I'll be back. One more week. Actually, more than that. And I may actually talk about curses. So stay tuned. Anyway, yeah. Have a great week. Thanks for watching.
Here I am, standing at the door, looking back at life as it's been before, holding on to things that might have been, knowing that this day